The Supreme Court is currently still going with an oral argument on this case, which will speak to the issue of these nationwide injunctions issued by district court judges. Now, these have happened under both Democrat and Republican presidents, but they always seem to tick up during the Trump years. As a matter of fact, the statistic is around 67% of all nationwide injunctions that have been issued have been against President Trump, either during this 100-plus days or the 4 years prior during his first term. But I wanted to get your read on just the first blush looking at this hearing today. It got contentious at times, but what was your takeaway as someone who's been before that court many times?
Well, and of course, we represent West Virginia in this case. The underlying action is the birthright citizenship issue, where the administration, through an executive order, narrowed the scope of who would qualify for birthright citizenship. That is what's not before the court, though, the actual underlying action. And that, I think, is going to have a very difficult time. But what is before the court is these universal injunctions. And look, conservatives have been guilty of going after these, too. I mean, famously, the state of Texas. But here's the reality, and I think the universal injunctions are dangerous for the exact reasons that Justice Alito was pointing out. Now, it's very close, Will. I could tell you just by the oral arguments. It is a very closely divided court. It's not clear where Justice Gordon, the argument's still going on right now. Jordan's inside the court with the Attorney General of West Virginia, J.B. McCuskey. So they're inside the courtroom right now. But I've been able to listen to it and read transcripts as they were coming. And here's the reality. The reality is this is, I think, looking at right now a 4-4 case. And Gorsuch could be the determining factor here. He did not seem very sympathetic to the President Trump's Solicitor General Sauer.
I wanted to play that bite from Justice Alito that you mentioned. This is bite 9, where he's talking about the problem of these nationwide injunctions, and even starts off by saying, let's put out of our minds the merits of this. As you're referencing, many people in the media are pointing to the underlying EO that got this hearing today, but that's not what it's about. It is specifically about these injunctions issued by district court judges that put a nationwide hold on the policy of the president. So let's play this bite, and then I want to get your reaction to it. Bite 9.
So what do you say about the practical problem? So let's put out of our minds the merits of this and just look at the abstract question of universal injunctions. What is your response to what some people think is the practical problem? And the practical problem is that there are 680 district court judges, and they are dedicated and they are scholarly, and I'm not impugning their motives in any way, but sometimes they're wrong. And all Article III judges are vulnerable to an occupational disease, which is the disease of thinking that I am right and I can do whatever I want. Now, on a multi-member appellate court, that is restrained by one's colleagues. But the trial judge sitting in the trial judge's courtroom is the monarch of that realm, and there are situations in which trial judges, the president does something. It could be President Trump, it could be President Biden, it could be President Obama. The trial judge says this is unlawful, and I'm going to enjoin it, and I'm convinced I'm right, so I'm not going to stay the injunction. And then an application is made to the Court of Appeals to stay the injunction. The Court of Appeals gives it the back of the hand, and then the case comes immediately to us in the context of an emergency application.
That is Justice Samuel Alito breaking that down, what is kind of the core problem of these nationwide injunctions. And I just wanted to get your thoughts, especially as it relates to how he points out the 680 district court judges. It reminds me of an argument you made before the Supreme Court talking about the local district attorneys going after the president. And when you have this broad swath of officials that can be weaponized in some way against the agenda of a president if they are able to pursue it in this manner.
Well, no, you're exactly correct. And by the way, if we carry the day and win this case, Justice Alito, what he wrote is going to be the basis of the opinion, because that is what he pointed out is exactly what, and you're right. I pointed it out in representing President Trump before the Supreme Court when the local DAs were going after him. I said, you know what? There's 2,800 or whatever the number was of local district attorneys. Any one of them can start doing this. And that's exactly the problem. So this idea that the injunction goes that long is dangerous, but or that broad. Here's the bottom line. The bottom line is we have to fight, and we're continuing to do that. And now at the Supreme Court.
And as you mentioned, it did seem, and you've also cautioned before, that you never can really tell what's going on in one of the justices' minds just by the questioning. Maybe some of them that were very aggressive against even the underlying policy. But once again, at the end of the day, this isn't about the executive order. It is about the limits of these district court judges. So if you were to take just the sentiment from the panel of justices up there, it could seem as though, because of the way they went after that underlying issue, that they may automatically, you can't ever imagine getting them on board with this. But then you hear statements like that from Justice Kagan just back in 2022, where she was cautioning at a Northwestern Law School event about a district judge being able to stop nationwide policy in its tracks, that while they may not like the underlying issue, which isn't before the court today, you could see some sort of narrow or limiting of a district court's power in nationwide injunctions from surprising members of the court, depending on how it shakes out.
Yeah, again, the underlying issue here, the birthright citizenship, whenever they touched it, did not seem like there was many justices that were in favor of what the Trump administration has done. Of course, being in favor of it doesn't mean it's not constitutional. So they're going to eventually have to address that issue. But as it relates to the injunction, this really should not be a liberal conservative issue. This really should be an issue of how do we want an unelected district court judge in Spokane impacting, citizens of the state of Georgia or North Carolina or Texas or New York. I mean, it's ridiculous.
If the Supreme Court were to not issue a broad order or rule on this in a way, are there any avenues through even Congress, which does have some authority in creating courts and things of that nature, could legislate some sort of restraints, or is that strictly up to the judicial branch once it's there?
No. Congress determines the jurisdiction of the courts. I mean, the courts in that sense are an act of, it's a constitutional appointment under Article 3. But yes, with the jurisdictional issues are the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, for instance. These are all adopted by congressional actions and are put in place across the country as an action of Congress. So, of course, Congress can curtail jurisdiction of courts. That would be a long way to go, and I'm not sure there would be enough support to actually do it. But it's a close call. I think we're right that the injunction should not be universal in scope, but it's going to be very close at the court.
We have gotten Jordan on the phone. We were hoping to have him back in our studio, but Jordan, that hearing went a little long today. Give us your thoughts on what you saw in the courtroom as you just left the Supreme Court of the United States.
It's politically charged times, and I think we've been in that situation for a number of years now. It's not something new for people who've been listening into the court since that audio has become, live streaming and available, not just, after the fact or historically. So you're not just relying on accounts. And the idea here that you've got what could be either a very straightforward case or a very complicated case. And I think that the easiest way to look at this is, should district court judges be able to stop the actions of the executive branch, the President of the United States, because they don't like the policy interpretation, or do they have to go through a court process? It doesn't mean that our president gets to do whatever they want, whoever we elect. And that's obviously, you can't just look at who the president is now and say, well, I like them, so I want them to have this power, but I don't want the next president to have this power. At the same time, you have this entire, 2 hours before the U.S. Supreme Court without the lower courts taking this kind of time. The lower courts who consider this, who issue these nationwide or universal injunctions, didn't take the time that the Supreme Court did today to even consider these issues. These were politically charged orders to prevent the President of the United States from carrying out their function to execute the laws of the United States.
We are so excited to announce the ACLJ's brand new app, completely redesigned to provide you with the best tools available to partner with us at the ACLJ. You can watch the daily Seculo program, sign the petitions, customize your ACLJ membership experience, donate with the click of a button, and receive up-to-the-minute critical updates that the mainstream media can't censor. Just scan the QR code on your screen or go to your phone's app store, search ACLJ, and click install. It's that simple.